We continue in our series on living in our identity because it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. And just for those of you who haven't been with us on this journey so far, we've looked at issues like toxic masculinity, the way society calls on men to be this toxic thing of control and domination. We've looked at the whole thing of the purity culture and how that is used to shame women particularly, and how it takes away the grace of God. You see, if you haven't picked it up yet, what we're aiming at is a contrast to legalism. What we're aiming at is a grace-orientated belief. Being a peculiar people, that we actually believe in grace. That no matter who we are, no matter what our past is, God forgives us. And last week, sorry, let me just refer to this. If you think of Matthew 23, when Jesus weeps over Jerusalem, you've got to look at that in the context. He's just been having fat arguments with the Pharisees and giving them what for, and calling them everything from whitewashed sepulchres. And he weeps over Jerusalem, and some commentators say, oh no, it's because of the temple destruction. Yes, that might be it. But he also weeps because of the behavior of the Pharisees. They had imposed law on the people, laws that they weren't applying themselves. And that's what happens in the church. We become so legalistic that we lose sight of the grace of God. Just an aside, this week I've been watching, I don't know how people binge watch. There's only 4 in the series, and I'm only on starting number 3 in a week. I hear people watch the whole thing in one day. The series on happy, shiny people. Apparently there was a TV show which I never saw about the Duggan family, 19 kids, but it looks at it was this Christian fundamentalist picture of the perfect Christian family. The wife very subject to the husband, and the children very subject to the parents, and that whole homeschooling thing that they were pushing. And it looks at that, but actually then exposes what was going on in the background. And it came from the Christian fundamentalist, legalistic thing that, of subjugation of women and children and men, and the amount of abuse that was going on in it. And you look at it and you are absolutely horrified. But what horrified me more, some of the graphics from the teachings that the Gotthard movement had done, actually I'd seen in other Christian churches. That fundamentalists, that legalism had creeped through into the wider Christian church. And the whole thing of subjugation. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. And last week, John focused on the submit yourselves one to another. And he unpacked very clearly how actually the words of that is actually calling for mutual submission. I've got a graphic that I sent to John, and he referenced. Can we move on? No, I haven't spoken about that. Can we move beyond the thing? There's the graphic with the Greek writing on it. Sorry, that's it. This is directly from a interlinear. So the word submit, and this is what I want to show you, what John was talking about last week, and reiterate it to each and every one of us in this room. Everybody starts this at 22, wives submit to your husbands. Okay. If you look at it, the word submit, upotasamenoi, is there. It's in verse 21. Submit yourselves to one another out of reverence of Christ. And then the translators have said, wives, submit yourselves to your own husband. If you look at the original Greek, do you see those 2 dots or 3 dots there and those dots there? That means there wasn't a Greek word in the sentence there. What they've done, what the translators have done, is they've borrowed the word submit from the previous verse. But then it even gets worse. If you look at the NIV, as John said, has this picture that verse, submit yourselves one to another, is actually linked in the previous thought pattern and the previous discussion. How can that be if the verb is actually linked to 22? Do you see it? I mean, it's very clear. So it's not saying, wives submit to your husbands and husbands don't have to submit to their wives. In fact, it's, as John was saying, submit yourselves one to another. That's the command. And this is how you do it. If you go into the next slide, it's mutual submission. And I love the way this translation puts it, the New Living Translation. And further, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. For wives, this means submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For a husband is head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church. He is the Savior of his body, the church. As the church submits to Christ, so you wives should submit to your husbands in everything. For husbands, this means, what is it saying? Going back, submit yourselves one to another. This means love your wives, just as Christ loved the church. He gave up his life for her to make her holy and clean, washed by the cleansing of God's word. Sorry about the B there. He did this to present her to himself as a glorious church, without a spot or a wrinkle or a blemish. Instead, she will be holy and without fault. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as they love their own bodies. For a man who loves his wife actually shows love for himself. No one hates his own body, but feeds and cares for it, just as Christ cares for the church. And we are members of his body. Do you see how the translation here is actually drawing that out, that it's mutual submission? And if we go back to that Greek, you'll see that it is mutual submission. Unfortunately, and us men have to hold up our hands here, there's been a bit of manipulation. Manipulation of the text and manipulation of women. We apologize. But what does that mean for us in our marriages? And we're going to be focusing on marriages a little bit today. I want to say, as I focus this, I mean, this is normally sort of a 2-day seminar. We talk about marriage and things like that, and we will probably do one in the near future. But today I'm going to be talking about values. I'm not going to be telling you how to run your marriage. Because how dare the church tell you how to run your marriage? Every marriage is different. Let's pick on our family. We are different to just about every other family in the sense of a pastoral couple. Sue has her own profession. She's a professional in her own right. And every time I've gone through the thing of interviews and what have you, I've had to say, she's not going to be running the WI or, the women's organizations. Because that's the kind of expectation. We're different. And every married couple in this room, guess what? Your marriages are different. Don't let other people put on you what it should look like. And that was the problem with the Duggar model, is every family had to look exactly the same. And you see these big conferences and everybody's dressed the same. That rings bells for me of cultism. I'm sorry. But it had influenced the church. Let's just talk a moment. There's the video now, isn't it? Yeah. I suddenly looked at my notes. And I've got 2 videos for you today to keep you going.
Hey, hon, I'm home. Hey, can you take out the trash? Sure.
Hey, we're on with Allison and her husband for Friday night.
Which one's Allison? Well, anyway, I'm supposed to watch Batman vs. Superman with Mike on Friday. All right. Wait, that's my mom?
Yep. Oh, really? It's sunny there. Hey, are you looking at beaches for our family trip?
No, this is Pebble Beach for golfing with my homies next month.
What?
Yeah.
You're not going golfing with your homies. You're going on a trip with me.
Don't think so.
I don't think so.
Your parents have been here every weekend for the past 2 months. What about that?
I have watched every single episode of ESPN Classics and I still don't even get it. So
I watched Brooklyn. That movie's like 7 hours. I pretend to like Downtown Abbey.
did you just call it Downtown Abbey?
Yes, I did.
You know it's Downton Abbey. Hey, Eleanor, can you clean up your room?
Relationships don't come with a scorecard. There's a kind of a toxicity that comes into relationships and is very evident. And so often we see it, the signs of it are, the fighting, which is the more obvious one, but the criticizing, particularly in public, that the marriage is the low priority. And this is a challenge for us because so often what happens is our marriage becomes low priority and the church becomes a high priority. And people spend more time in church and church activities. If that's you, we as a church need to release you from that guilt. Okay. Violence, never acceptable. Never acceptable. Apathy. We don't invest in our marriages. Shame. That we use shame to control the other person. And of course, the scorekeeping. You never. Do you remember that one? Huh? You've never used those terms, have you? The three big areas of conflict in every marriage that those things like fighting and what have you, the manifestation are the issues around money, issues around communication, and issues around sex. And if we think of money, the stress around money, it's a different values thing. So it's money, sex, and power, basically. Because communication is about power. If we go into the next slide, this is something that, in terms of communication, that comes from Freud. And you look at it, and it's parent, adult, child. We either communicate out of our parent ability, our adult, or our child. And our child is, I'm going to sulk. I'm taking my football and going home. That kind of thing. The parent is, I try and dominate the other person. And some people like to be the child with the parent because they can just be a little brat. And so you have this thing of different ways of relating to one another. Child to child, nye, 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 and it kind of just never gets anywhere. Parent to parent, you're trying to dominate each other. And it's just toxic, and there's this constant headbutting because you are going parent to parent. The issue is we need to learn to be adult to adult in communication. And that's a skill that's not taught in school. It's a skill that you have to learn and have to grow in. And unfortunately, we can't unpack it today, but just put before yourself a vision. What would an adult communication with my wife, with my husband look like? Would it mean that I'm not trying to dominate them all the time? Would it mean that I actually take responsibility for myself and take responsibility for the relationship? You see, marriage is an interesting dynamic. It's like a garden, and if we go into the next slide, when we moved into our house 2 years ago, that's what the garden looked like. Next click. That's what it looks like now. And next one. Sue has done an incredible job at transforming our garden. But you know what? That didn't happen instantly. It's taken a lot of water, a lot of input, a lot of flowers jumping into the boot of the car at the nursery. Don't know how they got there. It's all of those kind of things. It's taken an investment to get it like that. But has it been worth it? It delivers for us a place of beauty, of relaxation, pleasure, nourishment. To the right here, we've got this gazebo, and I just love sitting there, and working away, but I'm out there and the birds are coming in and out. Marriage is the same. If we invest in it, guess what? It becomes a place of beauty, rest, nourishment. Marriage is a complex system of love and cherishing. You see, no matter how beautiful and verdant our garden looks, and I think it looks stunning, if you neglect to care for it, it'll slowly degrade and perish. And marriage is the same. We had a couple in my previous church, and she complained because I think he said it in tongue in cheek, but she always reminded him of it. She said to him, "Do you love me?" And he said, "I told you on the day we got married, if it changes, I'll let you know." Needless to say, he was in trouble. But you see, if we don't invest in it, it becomes chaotic. The weeds take over, and the nourishment it gives diminishes. Marriages are these gardens that need our constant attention and degrade when we neglect them. I just want to say, we're talking this week about marriage. In a couple of weeks' time, we're going to be talking about singleness. There's no, in the fundamentalist church, they've kind of gone this extreme that marriage is this highly achieved thing, and it's you've got to be married because that's when you're significant. Yeah, directly opposite to what Paul says. But anyway, that's but there's no status difference. So I want to say to you, those of you who are single, who are divorced, who've gone through the trauma of losing a spouse, God sees you as well. We're dealing with marriage today. But actually, in this whole series, we want you to know that we are wanting to free you from any legalism that's been imposed on you in the church. I want to encourage you. I'm saying that, and I'm moving on quickly. There are 3 areas or foundations in marriage that we need to invest in. Remember, I'm saying values. I'm not telling you, you've got to be at home at 6 o'clock. And you remember that famous 1956 book that tells the wives what they need to do. They must be home having their makeup done, and the food must be ready, the lounge must be clean, the kids must be, Every marriage is different. You are free to be who you are in your marriage. But I want to hold up three things. First of all, that marriage is a friendship. Second, it's a love affair. And third, you need to repair the injuries. You see, marriage friendship takes time and energy, love and attention, like that garden. And we need to grow that friendship with our spouse. So often what happens is at the beginning of the marriage, there's a lot of that. And then when children come and, these things happen, we start neglecting and the weeds start coming in. Like a good friend, we need to value our spouse, our partner. And that goes for people who might not be married, but have a serious partnership. You've got to invest in it. Be friends. Laugh together. I think that's one of the things we've forgotten how to do nowadays. There's so much happening. Dam's been blown up in Ukraine. Ex-prime ministers resigning. Yeah. And there's just all, life has just encroached on us. Trying to make ends meet. Trying to, and work. We spend 9 hours at work to have 4 hours free time and then to be able to sleep. And I kind of go, when do we ever have fun? Marriage friendship. I encourage you. You're different. Each of you are different. How will you invest in the friendship? Then the love affair. This is the yummy, sexy relationship that was probably right at the beginning a romantic infatuation. But also when children come, that infatuation morphs into a kind of living together, a reality. We move from infatuation to reality. And some people can't make that change. They then feel that, this marriage is boring. And so they want out. But actually, that's where the gem is when we get to the point that there's this intimate bonding that generates shared life. That intimate bonding that brings a sense of security. It needs special attention when infatuation fades. But there's just such treasure there. If we consciously invest time and energy that our love affair requires, it can extend forever. You see those pictures of the elderly people walking in hand. That's been some of the examples I've seen. And there's such a blessing in that. I think, for me, the whole thing of it being a love affair and a whole process, a lifelong process, is reflected in the book Song of Solomon. Some churches try and translate it as and interpret it just as a spiritual thing. But actually, if you go back and talk to Jewish rabbis, they use it to teach young boys and girls when they're going through bar mitzvah and all of that kind of stuff. It's a very romantic and sexual book. You know, gardens are not gardens. Let's just put it that way. Okay? Gardens are not gardens. Sorry to the younger generation that I'm... But you realize God has created this thing called sex. And we need to learn to cherish it. Second value. The first value was friendship. The second value, the sort of, what word did I use? That intimate bonding. The third value is repair the brokenness. Repair the injuries that always occur in marriage. Can we show the next video?
I messed up. So I told her, you got a mirror, you can see what you look like in those jeans.
Oh.
So anyway, I don't know what to do.
You just talk to her.
And tell her what?
You tell her how you feel.
I did. I told her, I feel like you look like your mother.
Okay, no, you need to use your words. You know, romantic words.
Oh. Wait, what?
Okay, honey, you take your wife by her hands and you just pour into her.
Wait. Am I holding her hands or am I pouring something? I can't do both.
What? No, Todd, you are going to pour words into your wife. You look her in the eyes, dead set, and you just let go. Because that's what she does to you, Todd. She makes you let go. And you say to her, you mean everything to me. And I would let go of everything if it means that I just get to hold you for the rest of my life. And that's what you do. What are you doing?
I'm calling my wife, and you are going to tell me some pretty words to say to her.
We are not doing this.
Hey, babe. No, don't hang up. Don't hang up. I was an idiot, and I know you said some things too. You shouldn't have.
You don't say that.
That's what I meant I have some things to say to you right now.
No.
While we're on the phone.
Stop it.
Just listen. She said I have 2 minutes. What do I say? What do I say?
I'm sorry.
For what?
No, you tell her that.
I'm sorry. Babe? She's still there. I can hear her breathing.
Tell her I love you and you mean everything to me, and I am a fool because I don't tell you that more often.
I'm a fool for loving you, and I should say that stuff more often.
You were the only reason I am half the man I am. Your love and constant support is my daily breath.
I'm half the man I am because of you, and your love is a constraint.
Constant support.
No, no, your love is constantly on my breath, daily.
You are the greatest blessing God has ever given me, and you are perfect for me.
Babe, you're the best thing God ever did for me. You're perfect. For me, you're perfect. You're not perfect.
What are you doing? Just tell me what to say. Sunsets are more beautiful when you are on the horizon.
You're more beautiful at sunset on the horizon. It totally worked. Babe, I'm gone in 60 seconds.
What a moron.
You were great.
I know, right?
The words you said, I heard. I had no idea.
Seriously? You had no idea that some women fall for that stuff? I'm just glad you're not that gullible. By the way, what's for dinner? I've messed up.
Use your words, my friend. Use those words.
How to get yourself into trouble in 2 easy steps. Open your mouth and actually say something. You see, wounds arise from misunderstandings. Wounds arise from selfishness. Wounds arise from the mistakes we make, from the intrusions. Wounds arise from so many different sources. And the problem comes in that so often in marriage, we want to brush it under the carpet. We don't deal with what's there. You know, there's an interesting thing that won't allow you to put tires in a landfill. What happens is the tire over time moves, and eventually it'll pop out the surface and cause injuries. And that's what happens when we just keep brushing the hurts under the carpet. There will come a time when the issue is not the issue. There will be an explosion, you know, about the toothpaste lid that's left off. But actually, that's not the issue. It's the hurt that's gone before. And that's just been the camel, the straw on the camel's back. The issue is not the issue. You see, every one of us has trauma histories, from the big T to a little t traumas. All of us, as we looked at, you know, with toxic masculinity and the purity culture, and have things that will inevitably be trigger points. And to brush those under the carpet doesn't care for our partner. We need to take responsibility. And that's the hard part. I'm sorry. You know, for what? What am I sorry for? You know, that kind of thing, what you saw in the video. But I'm sorry. Taking responsibility is so crucial. We had a discussion this week, I can't remember, it was Monday night, at Vineyard Essentials, where there's a cultural thing here that isn't in South Africa, and I was trying to get to grips with it. And that's when people say, oh, I'm sorry you felt that way. In other words, they're apologizing, but for me as a South African, that's not an apology. That's saying, your feeling that way is your responsibility. It's got nothing to do with me. And so often we apologize with the but. I'm sorry, but, you know, you made me angry. Guys, that doesn't work, okay? You see, we need to take responsibility to repair the injuries that are there. Somebody once said, and I can't remember who, a good marriage is a union of two good forgivers. Think of that. A good marriage is a union of two good forgivers. Remember, the adult to adult is what we're aiming at. When we start taking responsibility, when we are quick to say, I'm sorry, when we value the person more than being right, we start operating adult to adult. A good marriage is a union between two good forgivers. You see, because if we allow the injuries to fester, to neglect the growth of the marriage, and to neglect our spouse's needs, the wounds accumulate and it becomes a cancer. What's the technical term? Metastasize. Yeah, metastasize. Yeah, secondaries. So it's not the issue, but it's the presenting issue. And it destroys marriage. So I want to encourage you. I haven't told you how to run your marriage. I want to encourage you 3 values to invest. First of all, it's time you had friendship. And build that friendship. When last did you just go out and, do something crazy on the spur of the moment? And just have a laugh together. The second thing, invest in your intimacy. The infatuation will die, and that's good, because you get to reality, and that's where the romance is. And thirdly, don't be, what's his name? Todd. Mind you, don't be either of those men. But recognize your sinfulness. Each of you. Take responsibility. Seek forgiveness. And build one another up. Amen.